All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and holy cow, what a day! What a day for the price action. Oh, my goodness. And then we'll go over a couple of the names that reported after the close. I'll tell you, I don't know if I've ever seen so many names go up like this after earnings, especially with and this is probably part of it too, is that the expectations are so low. But we'll go over all that. But where to start off with? I mean, what a day for IWM again, as well as the Qs. Remember, we were kind of talking about yesterday the rotation, how growth got a little bit too far ahead of itself, and we saw a catch up in value. Well, pretty amazing that we see a lot of the basically everything going up pretty decently. You had SPY finish up 2.6%, Qs finished up 3.6%, the diamonds were up 2.2%. I mean, it was basically, if you participated, you did pretty well. Up 4.9%. IWM up 4.9%, and even because I really don't like these gap up days. You've heard me say that a lot if you're a regular listener of the of my videos, but I hate these gap up days. You really have to be positioned, from the, to basically buy the close and sell a little bit of the open the last few days. But in this case, it didn't matter too much because the market continued to rally afterwards. You got another 1% of outperformance. But let me say that again. The majority of the market's gains, and then I'll move on to a whole bunch of other things to talk about. But the majority of the market's gains are always made in the aftermarket. So if you buy the close and sell the open, that is where the majority of the gains are, not vice versa, right? And there's plenty of studies on that. But I tried to talk about a lot of these points because I think a lot of small investors, they're not familiar, and there's plenty of stats that are out on basically that. And it's really tough, right? I manage a trading room all day long, and it's tough to find trades, that are going to move during the day when you already have such a big overnight move. And I think we've seen this now 5 days in a row. I don't calculate the percentage change basically night from morning, but I think it's 5 days in a row where we've had some sort of gap up. So it's pretty amazing. Looking at the performance for the day, other than the major indices, bonds kind of a non-factor for the day, down 0.5% today. Same thing with gold. Not much of a factor there. It did rally from where it opened, so rallied about 1%. So I could actually put that in light green there. And then the VIX. The VIX is confirming what's going on right now. You got the VIX, basically down to a 31. Remember, just a week and a half ago, it was at a 40. It hit a high of 45. Well, it's all the way down to 31. Sector-wise, energy, really big outperformance today with crude moving up, coming off of some very low levels. But I'll tell you, I really haven't participated in these energy names because I am more, as you know, more of a trend trader and more of a momentum trader. And a trend trader just kind of keeps me out of a lot of areas that are in downtrends. I really stick with uptrends for about 70 to 80% of what I do. I stick to uptrends and buy names that are falling back into support, into uptrends, and I play strength. Weakness, every once in a while, I will put on a counter trend trade, but this is pretty amazing. This XOP hit a low of 30 bucks and is now up to 53, and it has filled this gap. So I wanted to mention that because those are the biggest movers of the day. It did happen in the energy space. So if you manage to time this move from the lows, well, congratulations to you. Then you also had a lot of material names like Tech Resources was one name that we saw. Why I didn't click the mouse here, I don't know. But this thing really rallied very nicely. This is TECK. Finished up 9% on the day, and this is after a big gain from yesterday. So this thing was at right around 730, 740, and up to 891. So there's been plenty of opportunities. This was probably the most call activity or repetitive call activity that we saw yesterday. Another nice follow through, gap up and follow through. So giving you everything that you're looking for in terms of quick either day trades or quick swing trades. But steel, metals, we also saw some U.S. steel calls today. Letter X, talk about a name in a downtrend. And then the solar names. This was a name that I put on yesterday. One of my colleagues in the room, Pat Harris, he was been talking about ENPH. He's been sticking with that name over the last week. So great job, Pat, in this one. Oops, ENPH. But I mean, there's moves like this all over the place. So I mean, this thing was up 14% today, and it closed at the top of value, which is usually a place for me to kind of take profits in a name. But look at this thing go. So I played SEDG, and I did not hold it all the way through the end of the day because this was just such a huge name. The name's up 11%. Uh, and so really nice trade to put on yesterday. I was crying a little bit with a couple trades that weren't moving my way yesterday, but certainly today was a different story. Today, and we've got one more day of the month. This is one of my best months that I've had in a while. So I'll report all my P&L once I get the official numbers. Once we close up for the month, which will be tomorrow and probably Friday morning, or sometime Friday, I'll report those numbers. Again, always reporting numbers at the end of the month, see what you did, and that's something that I continue to do on Twitter at the end of every month. If you're following anybody else, like if they run a subscription service, I would recommend, again, this video is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. But if you're a part of a room or a subscription service, make sure they're reporting their numbers to you at the end of the month. Right? I think that's important. Again, following trades are not I would say not, recommended, right? But it's more, I think, some of the other subscription services out there and so forth, they should be teaching you the process of what they're doing, because following at the end of the day is really not a recipe for success, because you really have to come up with your own process. But you could certainly leverage off of other systems out there and get information, like we are doing on a day-to-day basis, providing, information, setups and news and so forth. But yeah, if you are paying for a subscription service or something like that, make sure that they're reporting their numbers to you every month, right? You are paying for that. Banks, another big day. Amazing the bank performance the last couple of days. They continue to run today. Look at the KRE ETF. How much is this thing up now? KRE. Let's see over the last couple of days. Let me just cancel this. This is up now. Jeez. About 15% in a week. I mean, the small cap outperformance is absolutely insane over the last week. This is up, if you just kind of look from 421. I know I'm cherry picking, days here, but from 421, the small caps are up 15%. That is enormous. What an enormous move. So again, really important. I think, I think the lesson, from what I try to teach in my trading room is to try to be as objective as possible and follow price and trend. Those are two of the things that I really do, follow price and trend rather than opinions. People in the media who have been telling you to do this and do that, and we're due for a retest, and comparing this to 2008 and 2009, which is a big mistake and was a big mistake. You don't see people coming out and saying that they were wrong, but one of the things that we had talked about was that yes, there are lessons to be learned from 2008, 2009, but this is not 2008 and 2009. Completely different set of circumstances driving this issue. So the guys who are doing this, who were doing this like a few weeks ago, comparing every tick to what was happening now versus 2008 and 2009, it's a big no-no in my opinion, because again, there were lessons to be learned. I traded through that time frame. I was an institutional trader, but this is completely different. The Fed reaction, completely different. The parameters and circumstances that we're going through, completely different than what was happening back then. So anyway, I'll move on from that. Let's talk about some of the names for earnings. I don't ever remember seeing so many names. We'll start with Microsoft, which had tremendous numbers. There's a VPOC up there at 182, which I think will be taken out. How we traded this one was, even though Microsoft doesn't traditionally move that much on earnings, I sold a put spread. I think it's one of those trades on earnings that people overlook is selling premium, because that you always go back to in trading the things that the option premium is much higher than normal because of the earnings event, right? Tesla. Good numbers by Tesla, by the way. They are up to 873 here. So I've got to watch this trade. But my trade for Tesla is I have to basically watch 890. So I may be buying. So what I've learned to do with these iron condors, right? I'm selling a call spread and I'm collecting premium. I'm selling a put spread, which I did both of those and I'm collecting premium. As the stock gets closer to those strikes, the way to kind of defend that is buying buying the stock in the after hours, right? And Google actually, we did a trade in Google that same thing. I sold an iron condor, and I bought some Google stock in the after hours at where did I end up buying this yesterday? I bought a little at 1272 to hedge, right? To hedge the iron condor, and I took this thing off at 1344, 13 yeah, 1338. So what happens is you make more money on the hedge, because again, your risk is capped on if you sold a call spread, put spread, you've got one of these iron condors, or if you just played it directionally, right? You're capped on how much you can lose. If the stock, like for example, if Tesla keeps rallying way past my strike, right, and I buy stock, and it keeps going past 900, then I can make much more money on the buy in the after hours than the original trade. So it's an important concept. I should actually do a webinar on what we've been doing for earnings, but tremendous. And then if you look at, talk about a model of consistency, ServiceNow up to 344. I know some people, and it's a pretty good argument, right, to say that earnings are a crapshoot. However, there are some names out there that are very consistent. So there are some names that make it better odds than a crapshoot. One of those names is ServiceNow. Look at the price change, right? So if you're going there is a difference, right? If it's now, if it's somebody that, if you look at their earnings, if it's a company where you look at their earnings history and it's all over the place, positive, negative, like I think Facebook probably more so that way. Like if we look at Facebook, you've got a couple bad quarters in there, you've got some good quarters in there. This one actually looks relatively pretty decent. But the difference between ServiceNow is it's a testament to the management, right? They know what they're doing. If the company rallies almost every quarter, then this is, look at this. This is much better than a crapshoot. It's much better than a 50-50. Now, you still have to play it smart because options are extremely expensive. So you can't just go out and buy calls, right? You either have to do a call spread, you could sell premium selling a put spread, or you could just be outright long the stock. But there's absolutely some names are have better odds than just a crapshoot, than just a throw of the dice. Right, so very, very impressive how these guys do it. I think, did I mention Facebook? But again, I don't know if I've ever seen a day like this where so many names have reported and have gone upside like this. Qualcomm is up to 81. eBay also reported too. I didn't even look at eBay to see what their price reaction was. Maybe that's the one. But whew, what a day, and really, really interesting. And what's nice is now I'll report the performance of this too. But if you look at our tactical portfolio, and unfortunately, which is going away because Motif is going away, so I'm going to have to move this over. But you could look at the performance of what we've been doing here, and it's done very nicely. And you've got names that are in here like Amazon and Microsoft and PayPal and so forth. So our performance, we're getting back to we're recouping a lot of those losses that we're seeing, in the beginning of March. So that's been more of a medium term portfolio that I've also been managing, and you've got the performance in there. That's right. So here's some of the names that are in here. The solar ETF, big win for that today in this portfolio. And we've got a little bit of Chinese exposure too. A couple names have been seeing some call activity. I remain long BABA. Let's talk about some of the new trades too. I hate adding risk in this environment, but look at what BABA's doing after the close. There was a big September call buyer that has showed up the last 2 days in Alibaba going out to September. I think it was the September. Let's see if I have this in the option activity channel. I think these were September, I want to say 210 calls, if my memory serves me right. I am long BABA stock, so that should play well for tomorrow. Yeah, September 205 calls, right? And they were going after these 2 days in a row. I did check open interest on these. That did increase open interest. And then there's a lot of JD calls today, too. So I actually did put on a little bit of some short-term calls, which again, I hate doing. This stock has been stuck in the mud, but this is the second time in a week I've seen calls, like aggressive calls, go up. So we'll see if this one gets some momentum to it possibly tomorrow. All right, guys, thanks for watching the video. Great day. Basically, as well, the end of video message that I'll leave you guys with is this price action has been tremendous. Please make sure that you are controlling what you can control, right? Make sure that you're taking some money out if you're doing well in this market. Just make sure that was a point that we made back in January that helped my P&L a lot, and I'll talk about that too when I do my end of month recap. But I think I took money out of my my trading account, I think 3 times in January, and that really kind of I was down in February, but by doing something like that, by making sure that you're locking up, it's called taking money out of the market. If you're taking money out of the market, who cares what the market does in 2-3 weeks, right? You have people on Twitter who will continuously say things like, well, this is going to end badly and so forth. If you take money out of the market, who cares if it ends badly? You took the money out, right? I think people on Twitter confused a lot of times that people think it's just buy and hold. You could take the money out anytime you want to, and also, if you trade a lot of options, roll your profits out and up. Right, go out to a further maturity, to a further strike. That's what the professional traders do in their option positions. They lock some in, and then they keep some on the table. Right. So anyway, I'll leave it there, guys. Have a great night, beautiful day. See you guys tomorrow.